Hey everyone, it's nice to see you again. We have a lot of things to talk about, so let's get right into it. For today's module, we will cover the second subsystems of the systems view of DE. This will serve as the intro to the module. So, are you ready? Let's begin. Since we are doing a systems view, let's start defining with what system is. Now, Bose in 2020 defined system as the one you see in the screen. It's an assembly of interrelated parts of elements that come together to constitute a larger whole. Now, we know there are 4 subsystems in the systems view of distance education. The first being the course design and development, which was the last module. The second, this one, the teaching and learning subsystem. The third, which are going to be the following weeks, we have the student support. And the fourth is the organization and management. These 4 subsystems are essentially linked together and do not work in isolation. Well, according to Bose, this could be described to be interdependent. For me, the teaching and learning subsystem basically is the pulsating heart of distance education. It's vital and central, yet drawing strength and imparting energy to the other components of the system. Really, really important. And that is why, as we keep learning about these subsystems, especially the learning and teaching subsystem, let's put that into perspective, because this is a chance of being more rather than knowing more. And the teaching and learning is a big part of the topic that allows you to become more. So let's start with the teaching component. So begs the question, who then is the DE teacher, right? Well, for models of DE that have synchronous or direct instruction, it's pretty obvious. For online classes, for example, we have the online teacher behind the screen. For Open University, like what we're doing right now, we have our FIC, our facilitator in charge, who we can consider our concrete teacher. But for other models of DE, like for example, the Type 6 model of Verduin and Clark, or even some pure asynchronous learning, we really don't know who the teacher is or what teaching is. So there's this study from Holt et al. It talks about teachers guiding the learners to explicit or implicit goals even with the absence of their presence. And they're called invisible teachers. There are ups and downs, don't get me wrong. But here, the teachers have a standby role. And their study made a claim that the word teacher might not even be appropriate, and suggested that the word be pedagogue, because etymologically it means drawing out from someone, like the students, for example. Now, it's also important to note that Saikili, in his definition in 2019, even made use of the word facilitator instead of teacher from Keegan's definition, because it makes more sense in the dynamic. Sometimes even other authors call it faculty instead of teacher. It's a bit confusing, right, with this mix of words to define who the teacher is. But I think we can all agree that teaching in the DE context is more flexible because there are a lot of models, for distance education. And it doesn't have to be necessitating a physical presence of an actual person, even like a virtual presence of an actual person. So for the benefit of conversation and, trying to piece things together, when we say teaching in this subsystem, we are referring to a lot of things, as long as it's an DE environment. It could be online teaching, it could be supervising, facilitating, monitoring, feedbacking, guardianship, materials construction, and instructing. All of these are done by a certain faculty or someone who prepares the learning experience. That would be considered teaching or teachers in this subsystem. So Kohler and Mishra in 2009 defined and constructed the terms TPAC. We know this to be technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge. It's like the emphasis of the interconnectedness of all these bodies of knowledge, technology, pedagogy, and content, and that it plays a lot into being a good teacher. It's not about just the content, it's how you teach and how you make use of technology as the tools. For the context of DE, it's still actually relevant because having content knowledge of the subject matter is the first step. And then you have to know the pedagogical techniques and strategies in the DE context for you to be able to deliver it. At the same time, a very, very advanced knowledge of tools and technology to make these things happen. For further discussion on TPAC, our reporter in this particular group will delve more into this one. So go watch the video for more information about TPAC. But for now, let's talk about invisible teachers again. Now, invisible teachers don't just disappear and call themselves teacher. Having absence of presence is not enough. You have to have TPAC still, being able to know the topic, the right pedagogy, the right way of constructing the materials, so that your presence is not needed, and the correct technology, the proper technology for it to happen. So there should be a vast knowledge of TPAC for an invisible presence in a DE context to occur, invisible teaching to occur. Now, I know this is not something common to a lot of students, because essentially this is not traditionally, experience. So this leads me to our first issue. So I'm kind of curious to those who have taken DE before, and for us who are taking DE formally right now, if you have taken it, or if you are taking it right now, how does invisible teaching influence your learning process? It could be negative or positive. I'd like to hear your experiences. Put it down below. So, in contrast to the teaching component, I think we can all say that the learning component is much more evident, because learning is the lifeblood of any education, including the distance education. It should be important to know that our assumptions or hypothesis of what the learners are be established, because learners are the fundamental key players in the role of learning experience in DE. And that is why Holmberg was able to establish 10 hypotheses of distant learning. I'm showing it here on the screen. If you want to know more about this, go to a video or videos of my fellow reporters. They'll delve more into the nuances and the details of this one. I think we have all agreed, or we've all learned from the first module, that most of the distance learning experiences, evolution since then, involve adults. So these are some characteristics of adults in the screen that you can see. Compared to youth, the adult learners are much more different than youth. So that's why they have different fields of education. And so we have Dr. Kone in his lecture. He listed 10 of these characteristics of adult learners. And again, these will be discussed further by my fellow reporters. But I think one thing that we have to establish here, it's important to know that these characteristics are geared towards adults. It claims that DE would work more or better or efficient in adults. But with the current shift of time, the youth also happen to be an audience to this field of education. In fact, although it's not like an arduous preparation of materials, curriculum, and teaching during the COVID-19, youths, I think most learners in the world was able to experience what DE is in a nutshell. Some of it might not be its ideal form, but I guess in a way we get to have a taste of it. Now, for me personally, this is such an interesting topic to explore, especially since a lot of our youth were able to explore this one during pandemic. From experience, I think some would say DE works for them, but some would say it absolutely is not for them. So this would lead me to my second issue. I'd like everyone to contribute in their insights. Do you know a non-adult learner or a youth who has successfully excelled in distance learning? Now, if yes, this is my question. What attributes do these non-adults or these youths have that allow them to prosper in distance learning? Because, we have characteristics of adults that thrive in DE? If no, do you think distance learning won't work for the youth? And why or why not? So there's one thing that really made me realize as I'm doing this video. I think we have to remember that the harmonious interplay of all subsystems culminates in an effective and impactful distance education experience. It's always the number one goal. And that is why we have to work together in all subsystems, with the heart being the teaching and learning. Therefore, as we continue our pursuit of knowledge in our academic learning of DE, the foundations of DE, let's continue to nurture and develop the teaching and learning knowledge that we have, being more, because it greatly impacts the other subsystems of education. When we learn better here as a student, we teach better out there. And so how do we maximize the best way to develop our teaching and learning components or subsystems in the systems view? Because I guess most of us here who's taking the foundations might end up in the teaching and learning subsystems. Others might might have like an influential hand in the other fields. But this one, I could say, would be one of the core things that we're going to be part of. So check the next videos of my fellow reporters and, try to get more insights and inputs from them and understand how learners really learn in this environment, and we're able to come up with different arsenals and gears as a teachers. And hey, everyone, that's it. So thank you so much for watching the entire thing up to this minute. And I hope you learned a lot. I've learned a lot in this process as well, and I hope to interact with you all in the forum. Bye. See you in the comments.